Hi friends, Michelle here with another video, and today I'm going to be telling you all about the books I read in the month of May. Now, May was a bit of a busy month for me, so I didn't do as much reading as I normally do. I read 4 books in the month of May, 2 thrillers, 1 autofiction book, and make that 3 thrillers and 1 autofiction book. All of them were fantastic. They were either 4 stars or 5-star reads. So I'll just tell you about what I read. The first book I read in the month of May was one that was recommended by Caitlin at Spill the Reads. And the book I'm talking about is Havoc by Christopher Bolin. This book was very different from anything I've ever read. First of all, it is set in Northern Africa in Egypt, in Luxor, Egypt, I believe, at a posh hotel during the 2020 pandemic. People are still in lockdown, so this hotel is really hurting for business. It's a luxury hotel overlooking the Nile River. It's a fantastic setting, and we meet one of the most fascinating people I've ever read in a book named Maggie. Maggie is an octogenarian lady who has come to the hotel to stay long-term. We don't know a whole lot about her to begin with, other than she's got a big history. She's led a very big life, and she has recently fled Switzerland, I believe. She was kicked out of a hotel in Switzerland for reasons that we don't know. So there's that. So we follow Maggie and learn more about her as we go. She, like I said, is staying at this hotel kind of for the foreseeable future, as you know, people are in lockdown, and she's just traveling. She's recently lost her husband, so she carries a lock of his hair around with her in the room, and likes to butt into other people's business. She's a bit of a busybody, and she spends her days wandering around the hotel, spying on other guests, and a lot of, time in her thoughts. And so the more this story unravels, the more we learn about her and her mysterious past. We meet the staff at the hotel, who Maggie has become acquainted with, and we get a lot of their points of view and opinions as well. And then one day, a young boy named Otto and his mother arrive at the hotel to stay. Otto's 8 years old, and he is a fascinating character as well. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the longer we get to know people at this place, Maggie and Otto front and center, the more suspenseful and twisty and psychologically jarring this book gets. Several shocking events happen in the midst of this beautiful, North African desert setting with these spectacular sunsets at the hotel every day. But there's a dark underside of this story that you get from the very beginning, being that it takes place during the pandemic, and just a sense of foreboding that you get from page 1. It's fantastically written. The plot moves along at a fantastic pace. It is just unbelievable. And I've said before that I think this would make a great book for a book club, because the ending is so, I don't want to say open-ended, but I can see different people having a completely different interpretation of the events that happened during the course of and at the end of this book. So if that sounds compelling to you, if you're at all fascinated by abnormal psychology or mysteries or murder mysteries or thrillers, this is all of the above and then some. Fantastic, 5 out of 5 stars. Havoc by Christopher Bolin. Thank you to Caitlin for introducing me to this book. I absolutely loved it. Next up was a really fun one. I did a buddy read, my first one on BookTube, with Isabel from Isabel Reads and Dee from the Reading Room 1972. I will link their channels in the description as well. And Dee chose the book, which was a new release by author Frida McFadden, which is one of his favorite authors. I've read 2 of her previous books and really enjoyed them, so I was really excited to do this buddy read. The book we read is called The Tenant. Just came out in May 6th, I believe. This was a blast. In this book, we meet Blake Porter. He is, at the beginning of this book, he loses his job. He is a bit of a jerk. He is very self-possessed, not self-aware at all. He lives with his fiance or his girlfriend, I should say. Or is it his fiance? I don't remember. But anyway, his girlfriend, they live together, and they're struggling with money. He just lost his job. They are living in an expensive brownstone in New York City, and he's wondering how they're going to make ends meet. He doesn't want them to end up on the street, so his girlfriend suggests that they get a tenant to share the expenses and make their life more affordable while they figure out what they're going to do. They start interviewing people, and they meet all kind of weird people that come to potentially live with them, and they finally agree on a girl named Whitney who comes to live with them. There's a wild turn of events that happens. I found myself laughing in this book so much at this male protagonist, which Blake Porter is one of those characters that you love to hate, as Isabel put it. Like, he's so over the top and such a jerk at turns, but then on the other hand, you kind of feel sorry for him because he's not very smart, and he's the architect of his own chaotic life. Like, he invites chaos nonstop because he makes stupid decisions all over the place. And as frustrating as he is, I also found him hilarious. Like, he kept me laughing through this whole book. And interestingly, Freida McFadden said that this is the first male protagonist that she's written. I thought she did it very convincingly. I loved him, and he reminded me a lot of the character in One by One by Freida McFadden, the female character. What was her name? Carolyn. She was the married lady protagonist in that book. Anyway, what kind of reminded me of her is the dialogue, the inner monologue of Blake reminded me a lot of this other lady in the other book. But anyway, it was just hilarious and suspenseful, but somewhat predictable. That's the only thing. This was a romp. It was a hilarious, fun thrill ride, except for it kind of dropped off for me toward the ending. It got a little bit slow, and the end was good, but then there was another twist. Apparently she's known for doing like several twists toward the end of the book, and there was one that was somewhat disappointing, let's put it that way. So I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave this 4 stars, maybe between 4 or 4.5. I gave it 4 because on Goodreads, that's the way the ratings work. So anyway, really enjoyed this. We had a blast talking about this book. Our discussion went in different directions, and we had different opinions about Blake, and I love that. Like, it would have been kind of, I don't know, not as interesting if we all agreed upon everything. So I really enjoyed our discussion of this book. It's on Isabel's channel if you want to check it out. Our buddy read discussion of The Tenant by Freida McFadden. Solid 4-star read. I loved it. It was so much fun. Next up, I read something completely different. The very first so-called autofiction book that I've ever read, and I didn't even know what that meant going in, but apparently autofiction is simply autobiography combined with fictitious elements. So I had seen this book at the bookstore many times. I had passed it by, but I was always curious because of the photograph on the cover and the simple title. I thought, and this book got rave reviews. I thought, I have to find out what this is about. Like, why is this book so intriguing? And I'll just show you. It's called The Postcard by Anne Berest. Now, This was translated from the French by, I believe, let me just see, by Tina Cover. So anyway, this lady on the cover is a relative of the author Anne Berest. And this story is based on her real life relatives. What this story is about is we start off in Paris in the year 2005, I want to say. 2003, sorry. One day, together with the usual holiday cards, an anonymous postcard is delivered to the Berest family home. On the front, a photo of the Opera Garnier in Paris. On the back, the names of Anne Berest's maternal great-grandparents, Ephraim and Emma, and their children, Noemi and Jacques, all killed at Auschwitz. So, years after the postcard is delivered, we're following Anne and her mother as they search for answers in why on earth somebody would send them this postcard with the names on the back of it, no other details other than where it was post-dated from. So they go on a mission to try and find out who sent it and why. This adventure takes them all over the French countryside together. And it's also interesting in that they have a very complicated mother-daughter relationship. So there's that. We also follow the 4 ancestors whose names are on the back of the postcard: Ephraim, Emma, and their 2 children, Jacques and Noemi, as well as their other daughter, Miriam. 4 of them, the 4 on the postcard, like it says, were killed during the Holocaust. And we go back in history and we follow them starting before the start of the invasion by the Nazis. And the story of how the patriarch of the family, Ephraim, he knows that something is going desperately wrong in Europe. He has all the red flags, all the alarm bells going off. And, you know, the family, among his family members, they all have conflicting opinions about politics at this time. So he's trying to convince them to leave Europe, and they want to move to Israel so they'll be safe, because he's hearing all over the place that the Germans are coming and Hitler and everything else that's about to happen. And he is like, we need to get out of here. So finally, he gets his children rounded up and they move to Israel. Meantime, while they're living there, they're still keeping in touch with friends and family members who are remained behind in Poland. And these people are saying, well, why don't you come and move to France? There's no way the Germans are going to invade France. You're perfectly safe here. And because life in Israel was hard. They were starting over. They had no money. And so back and forth correspondence eventually convinced Ephraim and Emma to move back to France, where ostensibly it was safe, as they were sure that the Germans weren't going to invade there. But as we know, that's not what happened. So the family are there, and we follow the story of what happens. To put in a nutshell, I mean, I could go on and on about this, but I'll just give you what you need to know. And so one night, the Nazis come to the door of Ephraim and Emma and their children at their home in France. They take the 2 children, Jacques and Noemi, because they took the kids to these so-called work camps, and there was absolutely nothing that could be done. The eldest daughter, Miriam, however, escaped before the soldiers got to the door. She escaped and went out the back door, hid in the backyard, covered herself in dirt in the garden, and stayed there until it was safe to come out. She came back, and of course, they're all beside themselves because the Nazis now have their 2 younger kids and took them away. And so, yeah, we follow the family story from there. We follow what happens to Emma and Ephraim, who eventually also are taken to a concentration camp. And we follow Miriam, who manages to escape With the help of some other people in France, she meets her future husband, and it's the story how they got together, their complicated relationships. There's some romantic elements in this story. It's a fascinating read, and it's it really happened, but it's still hard to fathom, and especially knowing these are the relatives of the author. She's basically telling her family history with some fictitious elements just to kind of embellish the story, I guess. It's hard to know, you know what's true because of history, but yeah, it's just fascinating. I couldn't stop reading this. It was not only heartfelt, but inspiring. And it had a really satisfying conclusion, even though some of this book is really depressing, about half. The first half is about Ephraim and Emma and the Holocaust part of the story, but then the second half is more focused on Anne and her mother and them trying to figure out who sent the postcard. So yeah, it's hopeful and inspiring and at turns funny and strange and romantic and complicated. And if you have any interest in people or history or anything like that, I think you'd really enjoy this book. I absolutely love this. This was a 5 out of 5 stars, an absolute banger of a book. Fantastic. I loved it. The Postcard by Anne Berest, translated from the French by Tina Cover. And the last book I read in May, I thought, okay, I'm going to try and get another thriller under my belt. And I happened to find this book on sale for $7 at a little bookstore. So what can I say? It's another author I've read from before named Taylor Adams, and the last word is the book. I read his book, No Exit, really enjoyed it. His books kind of have elements of implausibility, but it's easy to overlook that because I find his storytelling is so good that I can overlook kind of the silly stuff and just really enjoy and get invested in his stories. So this one was different for me because in this book, we're following, I'll just read from the back here so I don't mess it up. Emma Carpenter is living in isolation with her golden retriever, Leica, house-sitting an old beachfront home on the rainy Washington coast. Her only human contact is with her enigmatic elderly neighbor, Deke, via text, and via text message with the house's owner, Jules. One day, she reads a poorly written but gruesome horror novel by the author H.G. Cain and posts a 1-star review that drags her into an online argument with none other than the author himself. So that's already really interesting. That got me from the get-go. Soon after, disturbing incidents start occurring at night. To Emma, this can't just be a coincidence. It was strange enough for this author to bicker with her online about a lousy review. Could he be stalking her too? So this one is so suspenseful and creepy, it almost made the hair on my arms stand up. It is so creepy. She's in this house on this deserted stretch of beach and there's no one around. It's dark. Most of it takes place at night, and she's got this creep kind of stalking her and threatening her because she gave his crappy book a 1-star review online. So I mean, it doesn't get better than that for a thriller. It reminded me of an Ian Reid book almost in the creepiness factor. It was that level of creepy kind of thing. She's in this house with her dog by herself at night. She can hear floorboards creaking as she's walking, and the house has a lot of windows so she can see outside, and you know when you're scared and you see things that aren't there. Only some of the things she's seeing are there. Shadows in the dark, in the beach grass, and there's a motion-activated light outside that comes on and off, and she's not sure. Is he out there? Is he not out there? Is he watching me? He's threatened her. So yeah, things escalate, things get wild, all this crazy stuff happens. Thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a page turner of a thriller, and the only part that kind of let me down a little bit was towards the ending again. Wasn't a super strong finish. It was cruising all the way to a 5-star and then it just kind of dropped off. But that said, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. And if you like No Exit, I think this one I may have liked even better than that, just because, like I said, I felt the suspense all the way through the book. As I was reading it, it was really, it just freaked me out. So especially if you read this at night, like, yeah, I think this could really give you the creeps at the very least and really entertain you if you like a thriller. So yeah, a solid 4 out of 5 stars for this one. So there you have it. I started strong. I thoroughly enjoyed everything that I read this month. Loved my buddy read. It was so much fun. Looking forward to the next buddy read in July. And let me know if you have read any of these books. If you plan to read them, I hope you love them. And thanks for watching my wrap up of what I read in the month of May. I hope you had a great reading month. And to me, it's always quality over quantity. So yeah, happy reading for the month of June, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.